Really, I will add.
Yeah, Prem.
Okay, that's good. Okay, welcome everybody. Good evening. This session would be delivered by Vaishnavi, and who has already taken multiple sessions before in 2024 as well regarding many book. Like she is a very well-known member of our book club of COE, and she has taken many multiple sessions regarding the book she has read, and also the how you can build some discipline or how you can improve a customized routine for yourself for the self development. And she had also guided many of us with the communication, the way of communication. And this was one of the sessions where she would be demonstrating or maybe sharing her experience, like how one can be uh, one can improve themselves in terms of communication, or which books or which resources might have helped her for doing it. Let's hear it in her words. Vaishnavi, over to you.
Thank you, Prem, for that sweet introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm Vaishnavi Muralikrishnan, and I'm so happy to be here in 2025 because I started doing this in June last year, and I'm just glad it has been going on without a break. Touch wood. So, what this session is going to be is about how I'm good with communication. I know this sounds braggy, but this feedback has been consistently given to me by people in different positions. And people, this is not the first time someone has asked me how I specifically trained in, speaking in English, because English is everyone's second language now. So yeah, I thought why not share, compile everything that I've done and then share it here. So full disclaimer, this is not going to be a guide or ways to improve and things like that. This is what worked for me naturally. These things just happened, and I these are habits that I stuck through with. So yeah, let's start. Mm, so you would have gotten the agenda kind of thing. Mm, so English is actually my second language in the sense that, or not in the sense that write it in our forms or stuff like that. English is my second language in the sense that I actually speak a lot in English, other than Tamil, which is my native language. I used to communicate with a lot of friends in English because they read books, and a lot of my friends are very conveniently uh, they can conveniently speak in English. So we often chat in English, and I find it a little difficult to chat in Tamil because I think this goes on for all the native Indian languages. When you're texting in the native language, it takes a long time to form the words and spell every syllables in that because we are there are so many syllables in our Indian languages. So English, it's very easy for me to keep texting in English, and that just happens to be my norm now. I just start texting in English, until I find out that the person on the other end is not comfortable with English. They start texting in Tamil, and then I start replying to them in Tamil. But other than that, English is my go-to language. That is how much English is my second language, not just because the other person doesn't know Tamil. Even if they knew Tamil, I would still be texting in English. Um, it's a habit. It's not. I'm used to it. So that is how much English is my second language. If you want to be, be more fluent in English, I would always suggest that don't approach it in in a learning kind of way. I'm sorry, in a you have to study it or you have to sit and work hard for it. That is not the concept of learning a language. Of course, if you're learning an European language or some other language, for professional purposes, you can, if you're taking a language test, in that sense, of course, you can sit and study hard. But if you want to be fluent or if you want to have a good handle on it, I don't think you can just sit and take notes and then get it done because I'm sure we're we're all working and that is just not possible. One thing. The second thing is we should have had a better education system at school and better space for us to, learn and experiment with the language. Unfortunately, we don't have it. All we do is memorize stuff and then write it. Even for language papers, that's what we do. Language papers are actually taught in either the in just native language, and which is good if you're learning the language for the first time. But even in high school, people still do that, and that is the sad reality. And that is why a lot of people, even from English medium, they're not able to have a good handle in the language. So you cannot take up the school learning format here at this age. So now, if you're choosing to actually pay attention to the words, to how it's spelled, you should not take notes and you should not like pick up a book and just start paying attention to those. I say pick up a book. I started with fiction books, so it was easier for me to stick with the book. If you're choosing non-fiction or some dry books which does not grab your attention, it will be very hard for you to stick with it just for the purpose of learning the language. So my suggestion is, I think it applies for everybody. I'm not gonna leave this for your choice because fiction always takes the first place here to, grab your attention and, hold you to the book for a long time. Choose a fiction book, even if it's a short story or even if it's just 90, 100 pages, that is perfectly fine because everyone starts somewhere. And don't pay attention to learning the language. Make sure you stick with the book from the start and you finish the book and you're able to, understand the story. That is how you should start learning a language, by reading it. Because once you start reading it, you'll be able to comprehend the words better. You'll be able to remember the spelling or remember the how the letters come together to give the sounds and everything. So it's always better to read. And the reason I'm emphasizing reading and not watching movies or series is because I have traveled with people who have learned the language solely from watching movies and series. The problem with that is that um, the mostly almost all media and English content that we consume is from America, and they have certain phrases, they have certain words that they use, and which is not wrong, of course, but people who have completely learned the language from watching shows, American shows and movies, tend to often uh, reproduce those exact words and phrases which are not appropriate in every context. So movies and shows, they write it for TV, they write it for the rhythm, and they create it so that it could be perfect. But in real world, if you're trying to reproduce those words and phrases, it might not work. But the people who are trying to do that, they don't realize it. They feel like they are using it in the right sense. And I often felt uncomfortable when they are putting in a phrase in a chat or when they're throwing in it in a conversation, and it feels really awkward because one, it is not something we are used to. Those phrases are always placed out of context in our conversation. And the second thing is, no one speaks like that. No one speaks like how they are talking in movies or TV shows. They make it for fun. They make it for, to stir up emotions. No one scripts their conversation. So it's not a good choice to start learning from movies and TV shows. But it can be used as a complementary source. Start reading a book and maybe start with a small, a sitcom or a light-hearted movie or film. Because if you're gonna pick up a thriller or suspense or very addictive genre of series, you might not pay attention to the language because there won't be a lot of talking. If you're choosing suspense or thriller kind of things, you'll be more occupied with watching and trying to figure out what's going to happen next. So in that case, books are actually your friends. So always be an amateur, but don't, pick up a note and start making it a routine and start writing down things and trying to write down the meanings. I've seen people do that. People will say like, I'll pick up three new words every day from the dictionary and I'll write down the meaning and I'll write down the sentences using those words. But those would have worked when you're younger, but now you don't have time for it. So you just gotta learn it with the getting a book, a storybook, a fiction book. It can be any kind of fiction made for any age, so don't worry about that. So that is my first part. And the second on my agenda is take up every opportunity to speak. That is a very important tip. So I did not prepare for this session at all. Usually I would like prepare earlier in advance to, go through anecdotes or, there's a collection of videos I have. I would go through those things. But for this session, it's completely based on my experience. Take up every opportunity to speak is something I've been doing naturally. I did not make a conscious decision to pick up opportunity to take up opportunity to speak. When I was 14 or 13, I did schooling in a very uh, speak always in English kind of school. But of course, we don't speak in English with our friends, but with the teachers, of course, we do. They always had these weekly assemblies where they would choose students and they would be given quotes or a short stories to narrate on stage for say like 100 in front of 100 students. Um, I was not the star kid. I was not the best performer in class or anything. So obviously, I was not picked. I was not the first choice for all this speaking on stage thing. I always wanted to speak because you feel special when the teacher picked you to say a four sentence story or something on stage. So I wanted to be that. And I remember I joined this school in third standard, so like 3, 4, 5, 6, 4 years of observing those things and wanting to be that person who was on the stage. In seventh standard, I'd be like 14, 13, I don't know. I convinced the teacher very hard. I would go up every week and I'd say, I will do this, I'll do this. Please pick me, please. I was desperate at that. But I still remember the first topic was why I like ice cream. It was just roughly 250 or 300 words essay. I wrote this, I memorized it, and I spoke, and that was the start. And since then, I've been speaking on stage. I love speaking on stage, and like I needed that one opportunity, which I actually created for myself. If I hadn't gone up to the staff and begged for that opportunity, I wouldn't have. Because earlier I was very inhibited. I didn't want to go up and ask because I was not the topper or anything. So I was convinced that they would let me speak, but once they did and they saw how good I was, that's it. Every week I would speak, and then peop teachers wouldn't hesitate to put me on stage. They wouldn't even think twice. They would just ask me if you're okay doing this, and if I'm okay, I'll do that. So if you're I don't know if you have presentations at office or if you're in in meetings or anywhere, just don't worry about the grammar, don't worry about the pronunciation, because I know I didn't. Mostly because I didn't know if it was right or wrong, and even if it was wrong, people forget it. People don't remember it at all. Even if I misspoke in a lot of my sessions, I don't think Prem or Akriti, who've been here for a long time, they would remember how I messed up words or anything. So don't be afraid to mess up. It's completely okay, and no one remembers it except you. Because um, when was the last time you saw someone mess up on stage and you actually remember it for a long time? We don't remember it. We've seen several people misspeak words or make mistakes on stage. People embarrass themselves often in meetings and everywhere, but we don't remember anything, of course, so no one's going to remember yours. So don't be afraid to pick up every opportunity to converse in English, even with your coworkers. I know this might come a little bit out of practice because you've been with your coworkers for a long time, you've been with your friends for a long time. It might be a little different, but if you're meeting new people, maybe start doing that. Start speaking in English. It's okay if you make mistakes. No one cares. Actually, yeah, that's actually true. Only you care about your own mistakes. So that's my second thing that I wanted to share. Write everything down. Yeah. So when you're typing, you get these suggestions, right? So consider them your enemy because when you're journaling, I know people don't journal, a lot of people don't do, but if it's a habit that you find attractive, if it's something that you've always wanted to do, uh, take this as a hint. Pick up those habits that involve writing, writing to-do list, writing your goals. Do that, write it down so that you remember the words that you put in. One, two, when you're lost for words, which happens always, you can always go and find out the word on the internet. Like you would go and look for the word that you can write in your sentence, you can include in your passage or anything you're writing, which is not something you would do with your mobile phones or with all this predictive typing now. I have I have never worked this less in the past because I find a lot of predictive even in emails and in even WhatsApp texting you get a lot of words predicted and they are almost always right. So they are based on your past activities and stuff, but still those are your enemies if you're trying to learn the language. But if you already have a command on it, command with a command on English, it wouldn't bother you. But if you're trying to learn it, those predictive typing, they might not work for you because they are just plain text and they don't give uh, space for new kind of thinking. If you're writing stuff down, anything, even if it's a 4 line every day, if you're writing something that you're thinking about, you're trying to translate what you're thinking in your native language to English, and you're actually writing it down. Once you write it down, you will not forget it for at least a week. So remembering something for a week, remembering what you wrote for a week, it's a great way to remember. It's a great thing because we often forget. We have a lot of short-term memory uh, things that we do, texting, watching movies or something. Those are all short-term memories. You wouldn't remember what you read, or what your friend texted. You won't remember the exact words. But if you're writing it down, I can assure you, you will remember it at least for a few days. You will remember those words because you formed them. You wrote them with your hand. You created those words. I think that is a good exercise to begin with if you're writing down. And also, if you're reading a book and you find a really attractive phrase or word, write it down. I used to do that. I have this classmate this attractive cover classmate notebook. When it came out, I was so excited. I bought it. I didn't know what to do with it at all, but it was really attractive. I didn't want to like use it for academic purposes because once you use it for academic purposes, you throw it out. So I kept it for a long time, a year or two, and then I realized its full potential. I realized I could write down the really beautiful stuff I read on the notebook. So that's what I do. I use multicolored pens and those really good conversations on the book that I have. It's just 4 or 2 lines, something the character would say, something the author would say. I didn't want to forget those very beautiful sentences, so I would copy them on my notebook. I wouldn't note them on my phone. I wouldn't take a picture of it. I mean, if it's a long paragraph or a page, of course, I would take a picture of it. But if it's just a phrase or something, I would actually write it down on my notebook, which is I still preserve it, and it's a great way to learn the language if you're reading English books. That is. Thinking in a second language. So this is not my idea, but I once had a counselor, someone who would come to classes and they would have these random conversations at school. They said we only struggle to speak in a language we don't think in. Like, if I'm not thinking in English, I wouldn't be able to speak this fluently. The reason a lot of people are fluent is because they are so accustomed to the language itself. They are reading so much, they are doing a lot of work in English, their own work, their own creations in English, so that they just get used to it. They just start thinking in English, and then it becomes very easy for you to speak because what the language barrier is actually the time that it takes for you to translate it in your head and then being able to express it. So these are like small exercises that you could include in your everyday. If you're thinking something, when you're lying down and start of the day, you're brushing your teeth, any mundane tasks, routines, just start thinking in English. It's okay if you don't get it right. Of course, you don't have to check it or anything. Don't always correct yourself. But this is something that will be very beneficial for you. I did it before. I didn't even realize I was doing it. After I heard the counselor speak, I realized, yeah, that is what I've been doing. It comes very naturally to me because you've been traveling with a lot of English media, including books. I'm stressing it very much. Always read books because books can be greatly helpful if you're learning the language, any language, not just English. So before, I didn't realize it before, but actually that is very much true. I start thinking in English before I started speaking in English. That is something that will come natural to you if you make a conscious effort. Maybe once or twice in a day, just phrase it yourself in the head and then start thinking to you, start speaking to yourself in English. That will be extremely helpful to get the flow going. Yeah, that is one. Dictionary, yeah. So I remember before phone, think I had my first Android phone when I was in 10th standard or something. Before that, our house had five different Oxford dictionaries, and there used to be a Lifco or Limco or something. Those branded dictionaries are like very credible. Having a dictionary is an assert. Back in the days, I don't know how it's now. Now it's all useless, of course. I don't use the dictionary back home, but we still have it. I still remember my sister buying a set of Oxford dictionaries. It had one dictionary, it had one phrases and idioms book, and then it had one thesaurus. So I didn't understand the importance of the book when she first bought it, but once I started using it, I never stopped using it until I got my phone, of course. But I can still show you. I have a dictionary installed in my phone. It's called Word Web. I don't know if you can see it. Like, see, I think it's blurred out anyway. So yeah, I have a dictionary on my phone. I've had the same app for eight years. Yeah, I haven't changed the app because it's very simple and it doesn't take a lot of. It's offline, and I have the same desktop version installed on my laptop too, because when you start writing down stuff or when you start reading or when you get into the habit of reading, there's always going to be a new set of words in different books because different authors use different words in different contexts. I'm not perfect. Of course, the very first instance I encounter a new word, I wouldn't like immediately pick up the dictionary and read it. I would not do it at all. When the authors usually tend to repeat the words. If you read a lot, you would find that authors have specific words for specific emotions that they stick with. Even great authors, any author you name it, if they've written enough books, you can find a pattern of words that they use for describing an emotion because those words are ingrained into the story. Those words are ingrained into the authors. So they would go back to those words to describe familiar emotion that has already happened in the book before. In that sense, when the author is repeating the word the second or third time, I would definitely go on 100% go and pick out the dictionary and pick out the word. I would look it up because the first time I would just skip it because it's not important. I can just skip the word and then read the rest of the story and still understand the story. But when it's the second or third time, I have to know the meaning because if it's being used often, it really makes sense for you to know the meaning of it. So that skipping it often, you feel like you're missing something. So this might be some an important emotion or something that the author is trying to convey to you. So you should be able to understand it the next time the author mentions it. So have a dictionary, have a minimalistic dictionary, not an extravagant, large size occupying dictionary app or something. It's okay. You don't have to get a book. No one uses a book now. Get a dictionary app, not Google, because Google is kind of distracting when you're looking at a word because you get all the sites and everything, which is if you're not researching a word, then I don't think Google would be enough. Um, Choose a dictionary, choose a with a very minimalistic interface. Pick one out. Always have it on your home screen or somewhere so that it is easily accessible. You don't have to work for it. Yeah, also Google is you need in the internet access. So if you're reading a book, internet might be a distraction. That I now I remember that is the exact reason why I picked out an offline app because when you're reading, you don't want to get notifications or something and go into the internet. So I would turn off my internet or put it on flight mode and then read and then work. In that when that happens, I can usually use a offline dictionary. Yeah, now I remember as I'm speaking about it. That is one thing. No one's an expert. Yeah, I'm not an expert at all. You think I'm speaking good English? You should meet the mentor I had in my first internship. That man had a great command on English. I still admire. I still remember how he sounds. I don't remember what he spoke about, but I remember every time he was speaking, I would admire this man. I think he's in like 40s or late 30s or something. He was my manager, and of course, he's not Tamil. I don't know which language he was speaking because he did not have an accent at all. It was very clear, and he he would articulate well. He would. he had a great. I'm lost for words because I cannot describe how beautiful his English was. Not that he was speaking in a very calming, soothing tone, or that he had these fancy words, but I've never seen that man struggle for words or struggle for, adjectives or something. He would be very fluent. He would be very smooth, like he's just talking in his native language. Even when I'm talking in Tamil, sometimes I struggle with words. When I know it happens for everyone, we struggle with words sometimes. We introduce fillers. We say, I think I use and a lot. I don't finish my sentences properly, but that man, he speaks in perfect sentences, like everything's. You get it, right? You get how much I admire his language. So there are still a lot of people who's not whose first language is not English, but still have a great command. And I wonder how he got so fluent in it, so perfect in it. I never asked because it would seem odd to ask my manager, how did you get your English so well? But I understand, but he's been here for a long time and he's been speaking it, and he made a conscious effort to speak it right because a lot of people, we are all working in IT. I mean, my manager, I was actually in sports tech that time. He didn't have the need to actually be fluent in English. He just needed to be good in Hindi because Hindi is the most spoken language in sports and in sports media. So he didn't have to be that fluent, but still he was. And we all, I'm assuming, we are all working in IT, and English is like the common language for us, but still I've seen a lot of senior managers or others who don't speak in the perfect language, which is fine. But I mean, in this context, I wanted to highlight it. um, the reason is because they never corrected themselves. When you're writing an email in office, I have observed it in all the offices I've been in. They always repeat the same phrases. They always repeat the phrases that the managers use. The uh, uh, engineers, they all use the same language, and then the graduate trainees who come into the office, they pick up the same email template. They'll just copy and paste it. But the problem is we don't explore at all. We don't explore what could be done because no one's an expert. No one finds it in themselves to actually correct if some phrases are wrong. To actually, I know emails are often sent. They like the short form messages, but even in the short form messages, I've observed a lot of people being informal, being not polite enough. They just want to get the message across, so they lose all these essence of communication. We don't do a lot of that through emails or inside the office. They just have these curt sentences that don't mean anything, but that will mean something to the person who's listening to you because they've been in the office for a long time. I think this is something you everyone can improve any level of a position you hold. I think we should stop and think the phrases that we reuse in our emails and everything, are they correct? Are there ways to improve it? Are there different words that you can use? Because I got so bored using the word pinging. When you're sending a text message, people will say, I pinged you. And then at first, found it very annoying. And then I realized I was getting used to it. But then I started using alternate words like, hey, I sent you a message. Hey, I connected with you on Teams. So things like these, you can do it. It's very easy. These are like very minor changes that you could make for yourself, and you would appear to be a completely different person because no one's gonna follow your suit. No one will willingly pick up the words that you as a person singularly you are using it. No one will try to reproduce that because there's a standard that 50 other people are using, and someone new would obviously go with the 50 people in the office and not what you're doing. So of course you're gonna look different, not different in a positive way. Of course, you will stand out, and I think that really helps because wherever you go, in school, colleges, or office, if you make the effort to actually speak different words than the ones that are normally used, you will stand out. And that is from my experience. That is from my experience from getting no appreciation and everything. Like when you're being picked up, they will realize, they will unconsciously have it registered that you're someone who has a good handle on the language. You're someone who can speak well. So explore different options, wherever words that you're using, texting, even if it's on WhatsApp. Don't use those short constricted forms like texting you. I like. I don't know if it's just me. I've had a couple of people, my friends, who don't like the short forms texting, like you for you. The like, there's a lot of those now, and we hate it. We actually take the time to fully type it in English, and that's how we got comfortable. Because when I'm texting something to my friend and I feel like, no, this is not how a sentence should be formed, I immediately go to Google and I see what are the other ways to form those sentences, or if it's right. Um, Now you can use ChatGPT, but when I was, texting a lot, I would use Google. But yeah, you can use the ChatGPT, but the problem with ChatGPT is that it repeats the same words, same monotonic, used, cliched words. So I would say stay away from ChatGPT and go to the Google sites, websites and everything. So you can browse different websites and see if it's correct. And the reason is because those websites actually give you a better understanding of the why a sentence is phrased in a way and why it can't be phrased in other ways. So use Google more than ChatGPT if you're learning English, because ChatGPT is like, if you've used it, I've used it to write emails or letters when I was starting out, and I've seen like it produces the same thing. It's like very boring. ChatGPT's English is very boring. Even if you asked it to write a story, if you ask it to write 10 stories, it'll be very similar in the language. And that is also one of the reasons why you should pick up fiction, because different writers have different ways of uh, writing stories. If you're reading non-fiction, you might not find it easy to, one, to stick with the book, and two, those are all always narrations. They are not exactly conversational. They are not in conversational context. They are the author is speaking to you, the author is instructing you on something, the author is just sharing something. But in fiction, you find a lot of conversations being exchanged, and you cannot pick out exclusively books from American writers. There are from England, some are from Australia. So you get you get exposed to different perspectives, different ways of uh, uh, the language. Of course, I do not know where my authors are from, but I know that they are not from the same region or from same country, or even it might not be even their first language, but they would still be writing in English, and that is how you get exposed to different forms of the language, how it's spoken around the world, but you do not know that it's spoken in this part of the world, or it's spoken in this country, but you would still be taking it all in. So the output, when you're actually speaking, when you're organizing your thoughts, it might be a general kind of English. It is not just constrained to the American Western media. So that is one thing. Stay away from media as your primary source of English, one thing. And don't just restrict yourself to fiction, non-fiction books. Pick out fiction, take out short stories, conversation, everything, and write a lot. If you can start writing, start writing a story. Even you can start writing a story. It doesn't matter if your English is not perfect. So yeah, that is my whole experience of being here and being good with the language. And I think I have a lots to improve. I'm still trying. One thing I wanted to share is every session that I do here, every interview or something that I give, for job application stuff. In my head, I'm not doing good. In my head, I'm always messing up the words, because the only things that I remember are where I did not use a word right, or where I did not end a sentence right. But now when I go back and look at the recordings for reference or something, I'm actually like, I don't find any problems with it. So that's the thing. When you're starting out, you will find a lot of things wrong with yourself. But when you actually, record yourself and listen to it, there wouldn't be any problems. So have that learning mentality, and have a dictionary installed in your phone, in your laptop, so it's quickly accessible. Put it on the home screen. Don't be afraid to replace the often used words in your office. Make some changes everywhere you can find. Ah, that is all I would like to like finish this off with. And if you want to share anything, if you want to ask me anything, this is your time. Yeah. Oh, it's been 40 minutes. So Anything you want to clarify? Anything you want to share?
Yeah, Vaishnavi, I'd like to add few things. I really
Mm-hmm.
like the point which you have shared. So, few things which I'd like to share is like in the early stage, even which I can say even in the corporate life or anything there, whenever we start to improve us in terms of like English language. So my suggestion would be, or like the method which I have taken is instead of like focusing upon the proper and perfect vocabulary, we have to focus upon the way of communication. Like we have to be frequent and fluent in terms of communication. Like the other person or the audience is listening to us should be able to relate with us at the time while we are speaking. So it's not just about the words, it's not just about the grammar, it's about the way of communication, how you approach your audience, and how you build the bond or the connection while you are speaking with the audience, which is what I have noticed in you and many of the prominent speakers. And even here, there's a good example here is of like you are one of the examples, and Arun sir is one of the examples like he relates every person like with the real life instance, even from his perspective or with the perspective of the audience. So that's what makes like a person a good speaker or a good communicator, which I can say. And the audience would be able to easily understand and adapt to the situation which the person is able to communicate. And the second thing is like, yeah, the point which I have said, like writing down few things, or maybe writing few sentences which you have like writing few points, vocab. So that could really improve in terms of remembering and improving the fluency. Yeah.
Yeah. So the point that you shared about, relating with the person that you're communicating with, that is important because you don't want to alienate yourself by speaking in a different language. You don't often have to, speak. You don't have to use all the words that you learned in your sentences or in your when you're speaking with someone. That just alienates you. No one speaks like that. No one's when you're writing. Of course, in a book you find a lot of new words. Those are necessary for the book, but it is good to know those words. But I don't use all the words that I read. So when you're trying to relate with someone, simplicity is the way. You have to be simple. You just have to tell them what you're thinking and repeat what they are saying, and that is how you connect with the person that you're talking to. So keep it simple. You don't have to you don't have to put in fancy words, fancy phrases. You don't have to tell everyone that you know something. So just keep it real. That is it.
Also, one suggestion for the audience or who is listening. So it's the challenge when we face when we speak something or when we communicate something with someone is like the criticism. So maybe like few people are really good at English or really good at communicating, but that doesn't mean someone should be judging or someone should be correcting them at that particular moment. So instead of correcting them, let them speak, let them communicate, let the person finish the point. And maybe later when you're catching up, or maybe as in a casual talk, so then the person could like uh, give a positive criticism or positive opinion, or maybe the changes, or maybe then they could correct them. So instead of like, because the moment we correct someone while they are speaking would interrupt the flow of which they are speaking, and also might belittle the confidence. So
That
that's
is
what
so
I like to suggest. Yeah, as a person, like as a listener. So we should be like listen first properly what the person is communicating, and then we react or respond.
Yeah, that is so true. Thank you so much for sharing it. I should have included that because when you're starting out, when you're learning things, don't criticize others when they are on stage and when they are speaking to a bunch of people. Do not criticize them because it's not one, you're not perfect. I'm not perfect. I don't criticize people who are not perfect because I know I make a lot of mistakes. And two, you don't know how much work they have put in that speech or in that content or when you're the work that they've done in the background. And three, they might not have the level of exposure that you have to the language, because people are hailing from different backgrounds. They come to the office, they come to into this corporate IT scenario. A lot of people are new here. A lot of people's it's like the third or fourth language is English. So it you do not always give a space and give the provide a comfortable space for them to speak their mind in English. And if they make a mistake, don't if you're not close to them, don't ever correct them, because they might realize it later. They, of course, they know that their English is not perfect. They might pick out phrases from the senior managers or the more experienced people or the more fluent people, and they will correct it themselves. So don't go on criticizing, saying something, hey, you said this is wrong, this was wrong, you should have said this word and you didn't pronounce it. Don't correct anyone on pronunciation, because we are all not native speakers. Even native speakers, they don't pronounce things right. You think Americans speak perfect English? No, they don't. You think the British speak perfect English? There is no perfect English. English is not and very it's not an old language. It's a very new language, and a lot of its phrases and idioms, it does not English does not own its own identity. It's a borrowed identity. English as a language is a borrowed language. They say English is a beggar's language, because colonizers' language was English, and wherever there were colonies, they would pick out the words and then they would put it in their own language. That is how English developed. So English is not one. There is no superiority, and it is often being tied with English, the superiority complex. English is not a superior language. One, the reason why we are only learning English is because it is the medium of communication in India, because we have so many languages, and English was brought in by British and it was a common language, and that is literally the only reason we are communicating in English throughout all regions. But it's not a superior language too. It's not a perfect language in itself. Even the native speakers, they struggle with English. So I mean, we don't have to make it a big deal when your colleague or coworker or someone you're working with makes a mistake. Don't unless they ask for in feedback or something, don't go offering advices or going going on correcting them. I don't even correct my friends, because they speak their language, I speak our language. But if someone's actually trying to learn the language or asking your advice, and you're in a position, you're mentoring them, then it's perfectly fine. Otherwise, don't go on just correcting them because you don't know the language yourself. Yeah, no one speaks Shakespeare level of English here. Yeah, that is what I wanted to add to that point. That's a very good point. Thank you for bringing it up. And anyone else? Anyone have any thoughts you want to share? Anything else you want me to share? I would be happy to. Mm, yeah. So, Sri Lakshmi, you got what you were hoping for in this session?
Yeah, yeah. I like the one point, which is like grab every opportunity uh, you get for speaking. That will improve the way you speak. That is a really good point. And another one which I wanted to highlight is like what Premsai said. Like it's more about structuring actually. Like this is what I feel. The way you structure your session or structure your what do you say, the talk,
Mm.
that matters a lot. So yeah, and yeah, these two point I really like these 2 points. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I'm happy that you were able to, get something out of the session. And if there are no more questions or anything you guys want to share, I think we can wrap up.
One more doubt actually. Like sometimes, I find it difficult. Maybe I don't like what do you say? I falter, or say I don't get proper words to express my thoughts. So, do you have any tip for that one?
Yeah, I'm going to the first point. Read more fiction, read more stories, because there are characters that you can relate to. Irrespective of the age, they will be speaking very casually in a very informal manner. so that you can understand what the everyday language is like, what the everyday language of those characters is like. I mean, even if they are set in different, even if it's a historical fiction, even if it's a book that came out 50 years ago, those language phrases, they are still relevant. It's not like watching a movie or something. Those things go out of date. They age, but books don't age in the sense those are written by real people, and those characters might not be real, but the conversations are real. So once you start getting into the flow of reading a lot of conversations, a lot of exchanges in English between different characters and across different age groups, it gets ingrained in your brain. So those phrases just come out naturally. You don't have to put in a lot of effort trying to find words or phrases to include in your sentences. So you can find a lot of repeated words or phrases even across different books. So that's one thing that has helped you, that will help you. That's my suggestion.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Any words from anyone? I think it's time. Well, it's been a longer session. Okay then. This has been a good session. I'm looking forward to the next one. And I hope I make it to a year of book club sessions by Vaishnavi. It will be a milestone for me if I get it to a year. Yeah. So have a good year, everyone. I hope January's been treating you well. And yeah, see you in the next session. That is
Thank
all
you,
from me.
Vaishnavi, for
Thank you,
taking up
Preeti.
this important topic. Thank you, everyone, for joining in.